Yay, hello everybody. It's episode 23rd, the 23rd episode of Grizzlies Worldwide. And tonight, this evening, we go back to the place where we started the very first episode with this journey that has been the Grizzlies Worldwide podcast. And to meet again my dear friend Parker Fleming. And first of all, Parker, it's an honor to have you here. You were my first guest, and so it's special to have you back. And I want to know, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm great. It's an honor to be the first guest of your show, and the fact that I think we talked on your show about a year ago this time around, and
Yeah,
and I think the thing is with podcasting, the majority of it is consistency, is consistently putting out work, consistently providing something for your audience, and that's exactly what you've done. Like this episode is showing that you're being consistent, and hopefully it pays off in many ways, but I hope more importantly it pays off in some Grizzlies wins this time around instead of everything that happened last season.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for the kind words. Yeah, okay, last season, yeah, because I remember we were talking beginning last season. Last season, yeah, it was kind a year ago, more or less, and I was high hopes, and then it turned out the way it turned out. But okay, last season is over. It's um, the new season is up. So first thing I want to ask you, um, you watch Media Day.
Yeah.
Impressions that you have about Media Day, like things that stuck with you.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of those things like you don't want to take a whole lot from Media Day.
Mm-hmm.
There's some obviously if you have angles and stuff that you're looking for, then you're like, yeah, like we'll take some like you gotta take this and take that. But two things stood out. One is there's a lot of buzz, a lot of positive buzz about this new offense that the Grizzlies are going to be instilling. I'm sure we'll be talking more about it later in the show. But
Mm-hmm.
the main
Sure.
thing is their focus level seemed different than it has been in past years. But and it's not like one of those things where I'm saying like, oh, they were never focused or anything like that. There just seems to be a different level of intensity. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of that is just these guys, for one, they know their expectations. Two, after last season, like it's all business now. Like they got humbled. I think Brandon Clark put it in the way that they felt like losers. I
Yeah.
wouldn't go that far, but that he said it. Um, but they just got that bad taste in their mouth that's been sitting there for a year between everything that happened last season and then the first round exit in 2023. So this is their time to make up for that disappointment that they've had, and there's just a laser focused up and down the entire organization from Zach Kleiman to Taylor Jenkins to the big three of John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bain. They just seem very focused on the mission at hand, and that mission at hand being winning an NBA championship.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, and yeah, I agree with you. Especially on the focus and everything that you said about the Media Day. Of course, you could take it on different angles, of course. But it's would you agree? Because it's something that I was speaking about in previous podcasts. You know, also during the last season and then the beginning of the off season. That one of the main things that this Grizzlies team could take from the from last season. Of course, there were like obvious silver linings, like the emergence of Vince Williams Jr. and GG, for instance, that is obvious. But also, like that could instill some sort of resilience. You know, like you said, like it's all business now. You think like a season like the season that ended a couple months ago, just may may have um made this group grew up.
Yeah, I mean,
Quote quote grew up, quote
yeah,
quote, of course.
I mean, I don't think it's one of those things where it's like that season in particular, but let's just like kind of look at the roster now. Jaren Jackson Jr. is his seventh year. John Morant's entering his sixth season. So is Brandon
Mhm.
Clark. Desmond Bane's entering his fifth season. And even if you look at like up and down, like yeah, like Kennard eighth year, Santel Thomas entering his fourth year. Like and obviously too, you have Marcus Smart who has a wealth of playoff experience, but like it's just one of those things that these guys they're not these early 20s young guys in the league anymore. Like people know what they're about. People know what John Morant's about. People know what Jaren Jackson Jr. is about. People know what Desmond Bain is about, even though he's still criminally underrated. Like they
Yeah.
but those three guys are closer to being 10-year vets than they are to being rookies now. So I think that just comes with so I think with that comes a shift in mindset. It comes a shift in focus and a shift of just mentality. Like they know that they have these expectations that they set for themselves of like they want to win a championship, and I think that this is them showing that they're ready, and not discrediting any work beforehand, but they are ready to put in that work to go on this grueling task of winning a championship. It's a journey and it's mentally taxing, and it looks like they're preparing themselves and they're ready to accomplish such things.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Still regarding media day, was someone that you focused more, someone that you were impressed more on media day?
I mean, again, it's one of those I don't want to ever take too much away from media day.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to say anyone, it's Ja, especially since just the year that he's had, dating back to the suspensions that first suspension he's had.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you saw a different Ja, and he was really open about it. And I want to say a couple months ago, he said a 75% Ja is scary for the league, and
Yeah, I
now he
remember.
said, and now he says a happy Ja Morant is scary for the league. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I just think that with Ja, he showed again. It's one of those, but at the same time, you do want to see how he continues to progress. Like as the season goes along, I know analysts are thinking that. Like I believe that Ja Morant is going to be good. I think this experience will bring change for the better. But I
Mm-hmm.
think just seeing Ja Morant be open about his happiness and then being locked in on the task at hand, that was the most encouraging thing to me from media day.
Yeah, for sure. And because also sometimes I mentioned this on previous episodes, I was getting the feeling like a couple months ago that Ja was different. Different. It was more focused. I mean, and yeah, I got the same feeling on watching the media day. One question I used to ask people, and I want to ask you, because Ja was pretty quiet at the time. Do you think that quiet Ja is a good Ja?
Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I kind of take it sometimes that there's some things where like no news is good news.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I'll just kind
for
of leave
sure.
it at that. Like no one's heard anything. So I think it's one of those things where, yeah, I mean, I think quiet jaw's okay for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So now, moving on, but moving on, we're really moving backwards. We're going to the draft. Okay. So I know that you do draft analysis,
Mhm.
and okay, I want to know because coming, we were coming. I think we had the seventh pick. Then on the lottery, we went down to the ninth, if I'm not mistaken. And okay, we draft Edie on with the ninth pick. Before the draft, were you expecting this? Were you expecting something different? What were you expecting?
With that before the draft, like I
Mm-hmm.
knew the possibility of Edie was I knew it was out there. I just thought like, it makes sense. Then Klingon isn't
Yep. Yeah.
I mean,
We're
Klingon
on
wasn't
that.
may or may not have been available. Um, and then there's the rumors that they're gonna trade up to 3, and I'm like, okay, is this for Donovan Klingon or is this for Reed Shepherd? I was high on Reed Shepherd. My biggest draft lesson, and I know we haven't started games, it's been summer league, and it's more of a belief thing. I know it's off topic, but my biggest regret from draft, and it
Mm-hmm.
changed my philosophy, is just going with my gut. About 2 weeks before the draft, I had Sar number 1 all year, but just thinking more and more and watching more film on Reed Shepherd, I'm like, this guy's the best player in the draft class. And I
Yeah.
should have shifted and gone Shepherd 1, Sar 2, whatever. But with Edie, it's one of those things where he was always polarizing. People unfairly associated him with Boban and Taco Fall, where his production was like
Mm-hmm.
years ahead of those guys. He's a 2-time National Player of the Year. Taco Fall was a marginal at best starting center in college basketball. And then, from there, I've kind of sold myself more and more like, all right, this guy's a guaranteed top 20 pick in this draft because he's going to get second and third contracts. Like he's going to be a guy that sticks in the league. So I had him in my top 20. And then next thing I know, I hear from Combine, he's like, I want to be like a Zubac or Valanciunas, Steven Adams. And I'm like, a 7'4" version of that is an awesome basketball player. So then I moved him into my lottery. And from there, I'm like, and I even like when I've done mocks and stuff, community mocks and stuff, and I saw people take Klingon, I just was thinking like, okay, it seems more likely that they would take Edie over a guy that might be more of a project on the wing, like a Matas Buzelis or a Cody Williams or a Ron Holland,
Mm-hmm.
or even reaching for someone like Tristan da Silva. I didn't necessarily buy the Khalil Ware hype. I thought Edie is and what I was and is better than Khalil Ware.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just thinking about it more and more with the Grizzlies and the possibilities at 9. Obviously, there was the trade up possibility, and I thought they were going to trade up because they've always shown the willingness to go get their guy. They did not do that, and it paid off for them. They got Zach Edey, and I think Zach Edey fits exactly what they need, with rebounding, setting screens, but also, too, because of his size and his touch, he is a beyond elite finisher. He's going to draw defenses into the paint because if he gets the ball off a John Morant pick and roll, he's
Mm-hmm.
going to finish that. So then now teams are like, all right, do we got to guard Ja? Or are we going to leave Ja alone at the rim? Or are we going to go leave like Desmond Bain or Luke Kennard or Vince Williams or Jaren Jackson Jr. open from 3? That's the kind of pick your poison that a guy like Zach Edey opens up with his roll gravity, his finishing prowess. There's going to be question marks, like teams are going to go at him in a pick and roll. Teams are going to test him to see if he can defend in space.
Uh-huh.
But, and I'm interested to see how he holds up there. But I'm optimistic about his fit because of this context. And also, too, another thing that kind of goes underrated is defensively, he blocked 2 shots a game. That's good, but he also kind of had to hold back on blocking shots because Purdue couldn't afford him getting in foul trouble. What's he going to look like as a rim protector when he has the liberty to chase blocks in a sense? Because there's not this huge worry about getting in foul trouble because he's not the entire offense anymore. Like he
Mm-hmm.
is a component of the offensive system. So those elements, playing with Ja, defense, playing with Desmond Bain. I'm excited to see him play with Desmond Bain and get handoff synergy, pick and roll synergy with Desmond Bain. The rebounding, and just having a guy that could be like an outlier kind of big man, a guy that defies defies the archetypes that come with a guy his size and a guy of his skill set. I'm excited. I'm really excited about the Zach Edey fit, and I'm glad that I'm glad he's here. I'm ready to see it manifest.
Yeah. How do you see his game translating to the NBA? Because there was some questions about this too. This college game translating to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
You think you see him ready?
I think so. And like the thing
Well,
is, he's two-time National Player of the Year. He's
mhm.
22 years old, and like people worried about the agility, but like he averaged more than in the ability to run up and down the floor with John Morant. Like he averaged 30 minutes a game or more at Purdue. He tested better in the agility stuff than Donovan Clingan.
Yeah, yeah.
He he also has trimmed up. He said he's down to 290 so that he's ready to be a little bit more
Hmm.
mobile.
Hmm.
So like, yes, he's not gonna be like this, he's not gonna be like a Jaren Jackson Jr. type big or anything. But like people like thinking he's just gonna be this lumbering big. Like I watched them play with Valanciunas, and Valanciunas is a bit slower than Edie. I think they'll be fine in that regard. And then also too, like if you get the rebound and you get an outlet to John Morant, you may not need to get all the way back because John Morant is going to finish the fast break, whether it's as a passer or as a scorer. So yeah, I'm not totally worried. I think the only thing that I would probably be the most cautious about, cautious, skeptical, however you want to spin it, is
Hmm.
how he can defend in space. What's going to happen when teams try to put him in pick and rolls? How when teams try to mismatch on him? How is he going to do in that? Obviously, when you put him in those situations with a guy like Luka Doncic is going to cook everyone.
Yeah,
You
of course.
can't
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. He could go bear on the
yeah.
playoffs. Yeah,
Gobert's defensive player of the year,
yeah,
and guys like that are going to do that. But can he hold his own to the point where he doesn't need to be taken out of games because he's getting fried? That's what I'm watching for with Zach Edey here.
yeah. Well, so okay. How do you see also, especially defensively, he and Jaren?
What about him and Jaren defensively?
Yeah.
Um, with them two defensively, it's one of those things that's going to enable. I think it's going to enable Jaren more than it will Edie. For one, I mean, for Edie, he's going to have the ultimate cleanup guy. Like Jaren Jackson Jr. has thrived off being a rim roamer and being able to help off drives and send shots into the fifth row. Like that's just kind of what has been a successful model for the Grizzlies. That's why he became the defensive player of the year at 22-23. So getting Jaren back to that, because also too, when you're doing that with Jaren, you're adding more size on the perimeter, which is going to be better for closing out on 3-pointers and just having more size on the wing in general, because teams typically go either 5 out or 4 out, 1 in, 4 out, 1 high, however you want to spin it. So, but also too, when people are driving, you know,
Yeah.
drivers going to the basket, Jaren's helping. You have 2 7-footers and
Yes.
one Edie's gonna be in shoes. Edie's 7'5". You're gonna have a
Yeah.
7'5" guy and a 7-foot guy to finish over, and it's gonna be hard as crap to do so. So that's kind of how I see their defensive fit.
Also, I saw something that tweeted yeah, today or yesterday. I'm not sure. It was like correlating Smart uh, um, with Robert Williams and also Smart with
Yeah.
Edie. Want to elaborate a little bit on this that you tweeted?
Yeah, for sure.
Connection between
So
them.
for sure, I think so. It entered my mind when I heard Marcus say that he had been working with Edie this summer. He wanted to get
Mm-hmm.
in the gym, work with him, get chemistry. I've done extensive postseason dives on Marcus Smart and um sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, so like I had done like this research, and I'm like Marcus Smart, Robert Williams pairing kind of comes to mind because what they found a lot of success with is Marcus Smart is making them is going downhill either in the next action or off pick and roll, and you'll have Marcus or Robert Williams either cutting or rolling to the basket, or he's sitting in the dunker spot, so that when the defense shifts,
Mm-hmm.
all Marcus has to do is drop it off, lob it up to Robert Williams, and it's a dunk. And obviously, Edie is not as an explosive athlete as Robert Williams at third, but he's 7'5". He can catch any lob, and I think that kind of synergy kind of stood out to me because Marcus Smart, obviously, he only averaged like 5 assists, like 5, 6 assists a game in
Mm-hmm.
Boston, but he's an incredible passer off drives. He generates a lot of shot value with his passing off drives, whether it's pick and roll or just getting downhill. And so that's the kind of dynamic I was interested to see with Zach Edey and Marcus Smart.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Also, okay. Just still with the draft. Your thoughts on us drafting Jalen Wells and Cam Spencer, and
Yeah,
so
for sure.
what do you see them bringing into this season, into the Grizzlies team, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they bring this season. I mean, the goal is, the goal of the vision is you're healthy enough to where those guys can develop in the G League so that when it's their time next year and beyond, they're ready to go. I'll start with Wells. With Wells, he kind of came on the scene a little bit late for me in the draft
Mm-hmm.
cycle. I still had him, early second round, but I see the appeal. He's a phenomenal shooter, can let it fly in a variety of ways, has that size that you want on the wing, just a pure shooter. And that's what the Grizzlies need. And I actually, let me get to Cam Spencer before I kind of sum up that ultimate point. I love Cam
Mm-hmm.
Spencer. I watch a lot of UConn. I love Cam Spencer. He's an absolute dog. He just does he's an elite shooter, but also just does just all these little things to win. Goes for 50-50 balls, makes great reads, very rarely makes mistakes. Like, he's just that guy that you really wanted to connect on your team. And going into the draft, with having 2 second round picks, I had identify, the Grizzlies have extracted a lot of value out of that second round, out of the two-way
Yeah.
contracts as
Mm-hmm.
well with Vince Williams, G.G. Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
John Conchar, guys like that. And for me, I was like, what should they identify next? Like, what kind of skill set should they target here? And for me, with them likely veering big in the first round, I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to go add some shooting depth because I have operated under the philosophy of it's not a quality and quantity thing of shooters. You want a quantity of quality shooters because that's how you get
Mm-hmm.
a good half court offense. That's how you get a playoff level offense. And that's how you build around a guard like John Morant is you surround him with as much shooting as possible. I thought they accomplished that with the picks of Jalen Wells, Cam Spencer, and even like re-signing Luke Kennard as well.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of looking at, okay, the yeah, that was one thing that I was going to ask you about. Okay, this off season there was no moves from the Grizzlies except for signing J Huff on the two-way. Uh, uh, what's your thoughts on J Huff? I just said his name and come up with a question.
Yeah, don't have a lot. I'm being honest, don't have a lot of thoughts on him, but I mean, just from a high level, I understand the appeal with Jay
Mm-hmm.
Huff. He's a guy that's been in the G League for a while. I think he's like 27 years old. Former G League Defensive Player of the Year in 22-23. Blocks a lot of shots. He can stretch the floor. And it seemed to me, when they kind of see Jay Huff as the fifth big. If something happens, they
Hmm.
have a guy on a two-way contract that's ready to play. And Jay Huff more symbolizes what they're trying to do with those two-way contracts. They don't want a 15-man roster. They want an 18-man roster. They want to have they want their guys 1 through 18 to be ready to play for the Memphis Grizzlies on any given night. Yes, you want to develop and all that, but you want if next man up happens, you want guys to be ready. And I think Jay Huff symbolizes that. Now, how his fit looks, I'm intrigued to see. But I like how they went about the fifth big spot at this moment, especially. Yeah, we'll talk about the open roster spots. I
Hmm.
won't spoil too much. I won't jump too far ahead. But ultimately I like their approach with targeting a guy like Jay Huff that has size, tremendous size as a five, shooting and rim protection.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah. But I asked you about J-Hop, but I was going to ask you, how did you see the Lucanar thing going? Because there was this thing, because we had the team option, and then both parties agreed that they were going to talk, and it took I'm not sure, but 2 or 3 weeks, and basically we got Kennard for next season, and on a small value than we would have if we had exercised the team option. And also, how do you see this? And also, I want to add this because Lucanard seemed very happy for me on media day. How do you
Yeah,
see this from the management and from business standpoint, and also of course basketball standpoint?
yeah. I mean, that's another thing that stood out to me is that Luke Kennard throughout this whole thing, he wanted to be in Memphis the whole time, and
Mm-hmm.
they prioritized him too. They wanted Luke Kennard back in Memphis as well, and that's good. That's a good feeling that your guys want to stay. And the team option stuff is all kind of tricky because the Grizzlies were trying to navigate the aprons with
Mm-hmm.
the luxury tax, and I think this way they allowed themselves to have a little flexibility. While they didn't cheap out Luke Kennard. He's still getting a pretty good contract right now.
Yeah.
I want to say it's 11 million after bonuses. I want to say his base salary is like 9 mil according to Spotrac. But like Luke Kennard is a good basketball player, great and it's one of those things, and you're opening a door for me to kind of rant a little bit. I never understood the Twitter narrative about Luke Kennard at all because all these
Okay.
years, I don't know how long you followed. All these years, the Grizzlies have needed shooting. The Grizzlies have a guy that has shot 45% from three for the past in each season of the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
He is not just an elite shooter, he is a historically elite shooter. Yeah, I know people bring up defense and all that, but he is a historically elite shooter that he can still put the ball on the deck and make that extra pass. He knows how to find his teammates. Decent defensive rebounder. Like, yes, the defense is going to have questions, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if the offense can outweigh the defense, then you got Luke Kennard's the kind of guy you want next to John Morant. And even in the early going, we've seen such a limited sample with John Morant and Luke Kennard together, but they have
Mm-hmm.
a 125 offensive rating. They score 125 points per 100 possessions when those two guys are on the court together. And at some
Really?
point in the game, you just got to say, look, the offense outweighs the defense to a significant point where we need to put these guys on the floor together for 4 or 5 minutes because we need to blow this game open a little bit. I just never saw that stuff, and I never understood the discourse with Luke Kennard, especially given the Grizzlies' need for shooting and the fact that Luke Kennard is one of the best shooters in the NBA. That's my rant, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
thoughts on re-signing Luke Kennard.
Yeah, me too. Because yeah, to be honest, um, I remember, yeah, as I started to watch Luke Kennard, he was on the Clippers, and I was really quite impressed with him. I was very happy when he came to Memphis, and seeing him in Memphis also made me very happy. And yeah, I think he's a plus to the team. So yeah, there's also a lot of discourse that I also didn't understand. And yeah, I asked you this question, but yeah, I'm pretty happy that he stayed. And as I mentioned in the question that I just asked you, he seemed happy to be here. He
Yeah,
wanted to be here,
yeah,
and I think
that's important. Yeah,
yeah, that's very important because, like in basketball, like in all sports, in special collective sports, of course, everything is important. The tactics, the way you move, like the ball and everything. But also, there's this element of connection. In the locker room, in togetherness. That's important, and that's one of the things that I took out of media day. And Kennard was one of the players that really gave that this sense to me. So yeah, I'm with you on this 100%. I didn't know about the 125 per 100 possessions that you mentioned. I didn't know about that, but yeah. So it just corroborates my point. But still on the off season. As okay, we as I said, we signed Jay Huff on a two-way, and we kind of re-signed Luke Kennard. And okay, the Grizzlies did not do any more moves. There was there was this thing, this should we do something? Should we go after someone? Shouldn't we? It's okay like this. Uh, my opinion, but of course I want to know your opinion. At that point, was it was okay because there's no need, in my opinion, there's no need, to go after players just to go after players because, in a certain sense, there are a lot of we haven't really seen this Grizzlies team like play together. Um, Yes, especially with players coming with the draft. Smart came beginning last season, and it was a season that we all know. So, in my point of view, it was okay to not make any moves because I believe that you make moves if you need to make moves, and if the moves make sense, you don't make moves just because it creates a buzz on social media or whatever. But okay, your opinion. On Grizzlies on the off season, just re-signing Kennard, so it's just keeping on the team and Jay Hoffman at away and no more moves. Do you think that we should have done something else, or it was clever, smart to do it like that?
I mean, here's my thing with that.
Okay.
Um, for it's one of those things where, and I think Zach Kleiman said it in media days. They still need to see what this team looks like because while
Mm-hmm.
it's like yeah they just had the draft, and they re-signed Luke Kennard, they signed Jay Huff on a two-way. But I kind of look at it different, where if you look at that rotation before Ja got hurt, before Marcus Smart got hurt, before Desmond Bain got hurt,
Mm-hmm.
you replace or even stretch back to 22-23.
Okay.
You still only have 6 games of data with John Morant, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr.
Mm-hmm.
You need more of that. You're replacing Zaire Williams and David Roddy with Vince
Mm-hmm.
Williams and GG Jackson. You need to see
Mm-hmm.
how they look next to the core. And then that doesn't even discount to the fact that like Jake Laravia is going to get time to play. You need to see how he looks like next to the core. You drafted Zach Edey, and you believe in him being the starting. They clearly did not want to use the 9th pick on someone who's not going to be in the rotation. They want Zach Edey to play, even if you look at the injuries. Brandon Clark, you're not going to bring in somebody to supplant him in the rotation. You're not going to bring anyone to supplant Santi Aldama in the rotation or Luke Kennard. And even then, not a lot of data with Luke Kennard with the core as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's fair and I think it's justified for Zach Kleiman and the front office to be like, look, we want to see what this team has because guess what? You have all your assets and you're under the luxury tax for and it's not necessarily like entirely a money thing. It's let's see what this team looks like, and if something doesn't work, we have the flexibility to go
Yeah.
make moves to bolster the roster in the middle of the season. And guess what? You don't get that if you're in the luxury tax with all these new apron rules. I think they would have been hard capped to that first apron, which leads to team building restrictions. And now the Grizzlies, they have some wiggle room under the cap or under the luxury tax. And even more now with Derrick Rose retiring and not taking any of his
Mm-hmm.
salary next season. And so, yeah, like, yeah, it's disappointing because, it's the off season and like
Yeah.
the free agency and the free agency and the trades, that's like kind of what fuels everyone in the off season. So when that happens, there's a lot of angst over what's this front office doing? Why aren't they doing anything? But like at the end of the day, because of the season they had last year and the data they were able to accumulate with guys like on the positive side, guys like Vince Williams, Gigi Jackson, but on the negative side, like Zaire Williams, David Roddy, you
Mm-hmm.
want to see how it looks. Like you want to see how it looks before you mess something up because I mean everything looks great on paper, and I don't think, and also too, I think it's very clear, and I think probably fans would agree. The rotation, if you look at a 10-man, John Morant, Desmond Bain, Marcus Smart,
Mm-hmm.
Janet Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, Luke Kennard, Vince Williams Jr., Gigi Jackson, Santi Aldama,
This is,
Brandon Clark. That's
yeah.
10 guys. Are you going to bring in somebody to play over one of those guys? Or even yet, are you going to go into the luxury tax to go get a guy that's not projected to be in your rotation? Probably not. I mean, yeah, like you have case like granted, what if they would have gone out and I think there was some sort of Twitter exchange where like Mikal Bridges thought he
Mm-hmm.
was going to Memphis and Bane was trying to recruit him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you go into the luxury tax if you're adding Mikal Bridges to your team,
Yeah.
but you didn't. And that's fine. It's totally fine that happened. Um so that's kind of where I stand on things as far as the Grizzlies inactivity in the off season.
Yeah. Um. Also, okay, we were talking about the off season and no movement. Of course, I understand that fans want to see things to happen, and that's pretty fair, because there's no basketball going, and so there's this excitement that we're looking for coming from not from trades or free agency or whatever, but also I do believe that um, if you're like managing a team, you have like to look forward. And you said like you just mentioned like the 10-man rotation. You just said all the names and
Mhm.
looks like pretty good. And um, also, of course, then a couple of weeks, like last week, I think, or 10 days ago, we know that Derrick Rose retired, but at that point we had a 14-man roster. Um, so there was this thing, and now I think it's even more pressing, but I want to know because we went into the training camp in Nashville 2 days ago, I believe. With a 13-man roster, we need to add. We really need to. It's like an
Mhm.
obligation. Um, one uh, one one player to the roster. This leads me to two questions. One, there was this thing going on. Should we get Scottie Pippen Jr. on a standard contract or keep him on a two-way and then maybe later this season, um, convert him into a standard,
Yeah.
which I think it became more pressing with the retirement of Derrick Rose. But also, I saw a tweet of you like a couple of days ago. You were mentioning Covington. So, am I
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, what's your thoughts? Because okay, we have 3 men on a roster on a standard contracts. We need to fill one. What do you think that we should do?
Yeah. I would probably just, I is just being steering cautious with the injuries, maybe. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what I would do, and granted, stuff can change because teams are going to have to trim their rosters down. They might be cutting a guy that and expect to get cut, and you're like, "Yo, wait, let's go get that guy."
Mm-hmm.
And that can even apply on a two-way. You can convert Pippen and then go sign that other guy that got cut on a two-way deal. That's great. But another like I think right now on October 3rd at 6:57 p.m. Central Standard Time,
Yeah.
I would probably go with getting a guy like Robert Covington because he provides kind of 3 and D that you want. He can play positions 3, 4, and 5. He's a vet. He's battle tested. He's gone deep into the playoffs before. But also, too, this team just needs playable bodies. They just need guys that can play. And that kind of leads to, like if you convert Pippen, like you're kind of putting yourself at risk of like, is your two-way guy gonna be ready? Is the other two-way guy gonna be ready to play? Or is he gonna be as
Mm-hmm.
ready as Pippen? But at the end of the day, though, like if Pippen shows out in preseason and makes the case undeniable, then like he worked for it, he earns it. But as of right now, I just want as many playable bodies on the NBA floor as possible, and using that spot on a veteran uh, kind of seems
Yeah.
like the best
Mm-hmm.
idea to me.
Yeah. I asked you this question, but my opinion, and it's been my opinion for months. And like the end of last season, I was impressed with Scottie Pippen, and the summer league, I was quite impressed with him too. But my opinion is we can use Scottie on a two-way. There's no hurry to convert him to a
Right.
standard. We can do it later. So yeah, that's also my opinion. Um, so overall, and that's yeah, I was going to ask you this. Overall, how do you see Zach Lyman's work on this seasons since he's been here? How yours overall analysis on him?
I mean, I think he's done fantastic. I think and then like Taylor Jenkins. I think those two guys have done fantastic jobs, and you know, um, because at the end of the day, besides last year when like that was injuries, like last year was injuries
Yeah,
and
yeah.
suspension. But other than that, like the Grizzlies, when they took over, they were supposed to rebuild. They were projected to be one of the worst teams in the West, worst teams in the league. They never had that true rebuilding season. They didn't have those teams like the Houston Rockets of a few years ago, um, or Sacramento Kings that we've known, the Minnesota Timberwolves before they got Anthony Edwards, where your routine, or the Cleveland Cavaliers post
Hmm.
LeBron, but after they got guys like Mobley and Darius Garland, like they weren't picking at the top of the draft. They identified the talent and they were winning season one. That means a lot. Obviously, like this season, there's expectations. They have expectations of getting to where they want to go, but like, even as people would complain, like, oh, the Roddy pick didn't work out, Zaire Williams didn't work out, like, and at the end of the day, I think people got to understand, like, you can't bat 1,000.
Yeah.
No GM is ever going to hit 1,000. I mean, look at Oklahoma City.
Hmm.
NBA Twitter glorifies Sam
Yeah.
Presti. Sam Presti is one of the best execs in the NBA with what he's done architecting two big rebuilds. But like even then, Poku's out of the league now. Usman Dang isn't that good. They
Mm-hmm.
had Poku. They could have had Jaden McDaniels and Emmanuel Quickly, and they took Poku. And they traded the pick that was Alperen Şengün. They traded the pick that was, or they passed on Usman Dang, or they passed on Jalen Duran for Usman Dang. They passed on Franz Wagner for Josh Giddey. It more so points to the fact that you can't bat 1,000. But I think the work that he's done on the margins, identifying G.G. Jackson, identifying Vince Williams Jr., Santi Aldama, Scottie Pippen Jr., and even and with his trades, we're still we'll wait and see with the Marcus Smart stuff, but trading away Danny Green, who looks like a shell of himself, in 3 second-round draft picks for Luke Kennard, great trade. Even though that pick swap with New Orleans didn't work, his vision on replacing Valanciunas with a guy that kind of provides the same bruising style and takes those 5 minutes off Jaren and and then sets hard screens for Ja, but also takes significantly less touches than Jonas Valanciunas with Steven Adams. That was a good move. Zach Kleiman's a very good GM, and I think he's
Yeah,
done
I agree.
a fantastic job with this team. And I think the biggest thing too is identifying Desmond Bane and then him developing into a cornerstone piece. That changed the entire trajectory for the Grizzlies because they didn't need to pick in the draft high in the draft one more time to get that third banana. They didn't need to go shell out all these trade assets to go trade for somebody to be the third fiddle for John Morant and Janet Jackson Jr. Desmond Bane became that guy. So yeah, I
he
think
was like the
done really well.
30th pick, I think. Yeah.
30th pick.
Yeah.
30th pick.
Yeah. Also, okay. Yeah, I also, I also agree with you. And you mentioned Taylor Jenkins, and from my point of view, one of the one of the really good upsides on Taylor Jenkins, besides, of course, we know the way he can work the defense, because Grizzlies, even last year, I believe they were the 12th defense of NBA, even last year. And but also I think that he's open to learn, and to bring new people in. And there was this whole remodeling of the assistant coaching staff, and it was especially based on offense. How did you see this? Bringing up Tom Alizalo from Paris FC, who was the team that had the best offensive rating in the world last season. And you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, players seem really excited about the new offense. How do you see this working out?
I'm intrigued.
Are you excited or intrigued?
I'm excited. Yeah.
I am excited. I'm just asking you.
I am. It's one of those things where, the big critique of Taylor Jenkins, and again, Taylor Jenkins has done a fantastic job. He's been great at maximizing talent and developing players, building a top defense year in and year out. Even though they had 34 guys last year, they still had the 12th ranked defense. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But obviously, the Achilles heel has been the half court offense and changing that, and I'm excited to see how that pays out. I'm not gonna try to pronounce the assistant coach's name. I don't want to butcher it, but one of the guys they just brought in from Europe. I want to say he had, and then even then Noah LaRoche as well on the player development side, and just other guys they brought in on their coaching staff. But but particularly their hire from Europe. Um, I'm actually gonna like look this up to try to do this the best I can, but I want to say when he took over his European team. So let's see, Tomas Ilisalo.
Lizardo, yeah, it's
Oh
finished.
yeah,
He was the head coach from Paris. Yeah.
yeah. He coached in Paris, and he had this system of you know free motion and
Yeah.
everyone
Hmm.
was moving, cut and replace, and just a lot of movement off the ball. That seems what they're predicating on. I want to say I saw this video where like he instilled that offense, and they had like a 123 offensive rating, which is like the one of the highest marks in the history of basketball. So I am very intrigued by this offense, and it could be the factor that takes this team to the next level more than anything else.
Yeah. Would you agree that the thing that maybe could take this team to the next level is the half court offense?
100%. Oh, excuse me. I mean, the defense is there. The defense is there. They have the personnel. They have Jaren Jackson Jr., Marcus Smart, and even then, if you go deeper into the roster, you have Vince Williams, Zach Edey.
Hmm.
They have guys, and Scottie Pippen Jr. and his limited sample. They have guys that can defend. Taylor Jenkins is showing you have a good system. They have the defense of a playoff team, but to be a championship team, you got to boost the offense. And I think that getting their half court offense to a point where it's above average or above average, let's say like slightly above average, I think that could change a lot of things for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you just said it. You said you mentioned like uh, this upcoming season. What do you see like the goals for the Memphis Grizzlies? Clement talked about championship. Also, there's a lot of players talked about getting the chip, which I think, in my opinion, is how can I say this? Is of course you're not working to like I don't know to get 4 or 5 days and then get uh, semifinals conference exit, of course. But like in true honesty, this year, how do you see which ceiling as of right now, of course, because changes can be made until the trade deadline. You mentioned that we have the flexibility to do changes that if are necessary. How do you see which ceiling do you see for this team heading into this season?
Um, my expectations,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, obviously, I have the idea that their expectation should be a playoff team, and from there, like you got to let matchups dictate. Obviously, first round exit would be disappointing. Early second round exit would be disappointing. I mean, it's matchup dependence. Like if you got 7 games into
Which
round and it's
like
tough,
right now, like just right now, because okay, things can change during season. Like, what would you see like would be like the worst matchup for the Grizzlies on the
worst
playoff?
matchup.
Yeah, right now.
Mm, I'm still gonna say Minnesota. I think Minnesota poses a lot of issues
Mm-hmm.
um, with their size, especially on the perimeter. But also too, I mean, I think a successful quote unquote successful season would my expectation would be making it to the second round of the playoffs, and then from there, whatever happens, happens. But Western Conference Finals would be a signal of growth, and it shows that they're in a step in the right direction of going to be a championship team. Obviously, you want them to win the championship. You want them to get to the NBA
Yeah,
Finals,
yeah,
but
of course. Yeah,
at the end of the day, you hear it all the time. Everywhere you look at basketball, you hear it nonstop. It it takes a lot of luck to win an NBA championship.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
look at the
for sure.
22 Warriors. Look at the 22 Warriors. Um,
So you
not
like You like thinking 2026, 2027, maybe? Like
Or like even
realistically,
then, like
not as a fan, because of course as a fan you want it to happen next this season. I want it to, but realistically, you looking something like this?
you have Western Conference Finals. That's what I'd like to see.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and also, uh, okay, because I was going to ask you, but now we were already almost talking for an hour. It didn't seem like it, but it is. Which players are you more excited to see coming into this season?
Um, I'm gonna just go different from. I'm gonna steer different from
Mm-hmm.
the big three plus Edie. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's excited to see those guys.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited to see Marcus Smart. I think with this new offense, obviously defensively and the winning plays that he makes, that's one thing. I think his season last year was it wasn't like fantastic, but I think it's better than people give it credit for. But he's the kind of guy that, when you're talking about this positionless half court offense, you're talking about just freedom of movement and having as much playmaking on the floor as possible. Marcus Smart embodies that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and just I'm just ready. I'm just ready for the full Marcus Smart experience. We got a little taste of it last year, but not really. Um, and I'm just ready for people to remember how good Marcus Smart is. And I'm ready to see Brandon Clark healthy and what this new version of post Achilles tear Brandon Clark looks like. Those are the two guys I would say that I'm looking forward to watching the most this season.
Okay, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Thoughts on Arabia? Like, okay, one question I want to ask you. GG is down. Vince Williams probably is also down beginning the season. Who you think is starting Laravia? Wells, GD.
Who's starting?
No, who's starting? No, who's making the rotation? Sorry.
Oh, so let's see. Right now you have Ja, Bain, Smart, Jaren, Edie, Luke, BC, Santi. I would go Jake. I
Jake?
think
Yeah.
Jake. I think he's built a lot of good momentum. Going in these past like 6 months, but from his end of season play in summer league. Commercial appeal. DeMichael Cole wrote from training camp that Jake Laravia is having a
Yeah, I
standout
just
training
saw it
camp.
a couple hours ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is Jake Laravia's time to kind of just seize the opportunity, and for him, this could mean solidifying a rotation spot. I'm very excited to see what he could do in those minutes. I mean, if I had to kind of give a pecking order, I'd probably go Laravia, Conchar, but just with Conchar, you know what you're getting. He
Yeah.
rarely makes mistakes, and he does the
Yeah, I
things that
agree.
you kind of miss with
Yeah,
Vince Williams. Rebounding, the deflections, the passing, um,
the little things, the little things
little
from
things. And
and
the thing
yeah,
is,
because you don't notice on the stats on or everything, but he does it. Yeah.
yeah. So, but this is what training camp's all about. Who knows? Maybe Jalen Wells has an awesome training camp preseason. Maybe Scottie Pippen Jr. shows that, hey, they might need a backup point guard, stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I think Jake Laravia is in the lead to kind of take that like ninth spot in the rotation.
Yeah, okay, for sure. That's fair. One last question, and then
Hmm.
I'm gonna I want to ask you this because on a previous episode I had Steven Adams stats. Of course, you know him here, and it was a pretty awesome conversation with him, and told me that you were the guy that just like kind of welcomed him into Memphis because there was this giveaway from a Steven Adams shirt, and you sent him to New Zealand. That's right.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
That's pretty cool. I just wanted to say this because he was talking to me, and we were talking on the podcast, and he mentioned your name. He said, I don't know if you know Parker. Yeah, of course I know Ryan Parker. It was my first guest on this podcast, and he told me that you send the shirts to him to New Zealand. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, so it's like
Yeah,
Memphian style, that kind of thing.
I guess so. I mean, it's just one of those things, and like, I mean, very surface level. I had an extra Steven Adams Hawaiian shirt, and I'm just like, this guy would appreciate it way more than anyone here in Memphis would, and
Uh-huh.
that's kind of what led to that. But like, and just kind of deeper, just like, whether it's him or whether it's you or just anyone else that follows the Grizzlies without not even just without being in Memphis, but without being in the United States, you're
Mm-hmm.
staying up at odd hours to watch games. You're still engaging with everyone when they're up and like when they're up and watching games, even though the huge time zone difference. And the fact that we live in a world where you can kind of connect and kind of bond over one thing around the world. It's cool. It's special. And social media, it brings out a lot of bad, but this is the kind of stuff that could bring out the good. And you know, and people, like you and him supporting the Grizzlies from afar um and wanting to be a part of the fan base. I mean, I grew up a Memphis Grizzlies fan. I went to every game. I went to games in the Pyramid. I went to the games when they first opened in the Forum, and I stayed going to games when they were winning, when they were losing 60 games a year. Like, but at the end of the day, like, I want as many people to like the Memphis Grizzlies as possible. So, like, when I see people like you and him making sacrifices to your to your sleep schedule and
Yeah, for sure.
Um, just yeah, it's cool, and I just kind of wanted to, talk with Funaki like and Twitter replies and like DMs and stuff, just talking ball and stuff, and I'm just like, I think he would appreciate this, and I just thought to send it to him, and he did, and it's nice, all these years later, he's still appreciative of it. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So yeah, it's really, yeah, it's beautiful. And it stuck with me. It's really stuck with me.
Mhm.
So I want to thank you for being here once again. And
100%.
if you're up to, you're going to be here again for
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
I just want also to tell everybody that is listening to this podcast, go subscribe. Uh, Substackalities,
Mhm.
Substack from Parker. It's a Substack. It's from St. Jude's Hospital, right?
Mhm. Yep,
So
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
yeah. So you wanna say something about Substackalities? Yeah, you say that I pronounce it well because it's Greek
Yeah,
or something. Yeah.
yeah, so
So,
Substack Elitist, it's at my Substack, and, it
and
is
St. Jude's Hospital is uh,
yeah, it's it's for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. It's for anyone unfamiliar, it's a cancer and research hospital based in,
mm-hmm,
Memphis, Tennessee, and
mm-hmm,
they treat childhood cancer patients, and they don't have parents pay for anything, and
mm-hmm,
that's because of the donations to St. Jude. So and I do this in honor of my wife who's battling cancer and has been
mm-hmm,
a St. Jude patient since she was, I want to say 14 years old.
mm-hmm.
um so, and there's no paywall. Like, it's not one of those things that, like, oh, if you donate to St. Jude, you can read my work. Like, it's still going to be free regardless. But if you want to donate, if you want to become a paid subscriber, it's just kind of out of the goodness of your heart that you're a subscriber. So yeah. So I appreciate you giving me this platform to talk about this.
Yeah. Okay. You all go subscribe this, and that's pretty very also very beautiful thing that you're doing here, and all the force with it. So, Parker, once again, was a pleasure to have you here. I hope to have you more times. Um, Want to add something else?
I think I'm good. I appreciate you having me on. It
No,
was
it's
fun.
a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Have you on first episode, on 23rd episode, so maybe on the 46th or something. But we'll be back for sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah, all the best for you and for your loved ones, and go Grizzlies. Okay, so thank you, and we'll catch up later. It was an honor to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely.